What's happening, YouTube? It's Simon 466 Cards. Today we're going to talk about improving the National. As you might have seen from my earlier video, I was there in Chicago at the National for the first time, and I had a great time, met a lot of great folks, had a lot of fun at the trade nights, some wild experiences as you might have seen from my previous video. But as I was walking the show floor, I couldn't help but think that there are really simple ways to improve both the selling and customer experience at the National. And I'm going to walk through some of those ideas. So let's jump right into it. The first thing is that, as you can see from this picture here, most of the floor is cement, right? And that's going to play into my first idea. It's 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, some 70-year-olds walking around on a hard cement floor mostly for 8 hours. There's no rest area. So you see a lot of people sitting in random chairs littered across the edge of the floor throughout this massive space. And it just doesn't look great. And if you're gonna rent out, I don't know how many 100,000 or like hundreds of thousands of square feet that they rented, you couldn't put away like 500 square feet for a rest area with chairs that people can sit in. Like, I know they're trying to sell this like VIP area where you can do that, but it just seems like an unnecessary money grab when you can just have a small area on the show floor. And I think the idea that I'm bringing to the table that would be well received all the way around is have massage therapists there, like you see on the screen here, where they give 15-minute or 10-minute massages. You pay by the minute. The physical or massage therapist here would make out like gangbusters. I don't see an issue. 10 minutes, $20. Like, I would have 100% done that at some point. There'd be a lineup for days. So I think this is a pretty straightforward win for everybody. You set up a part of the floor that's a rest area. Like, you see some of these couches here. Maybe you'll need more than that, but you have a lot of older folks. You need to think about those people. And then, yeah, I think the massage chairs or massage therapist idea, I think that's just a win. For everybody, for the massage therapist, for the venue, for the users, like, or the customers walking the show floor. Like, I think it's just simple stuff. So that's the first idea. What do you think about this one? I think this one's pretty obvious, and a few people I talked to also mentioned this and or agreed with this one. We were talking about how this could be improved. Second one, I was on the show floor for maybe 10 minutes at one of the first booths I was visiting on the first day, and I heard someone say, "What booth are you?" And throughout my 2 days there, I probably heard that a dozen times, because none of the booths had any numbering on any of their signage. It wasn't on like any post or anything. And to me, that's not on the vendors, that's on the venue, like the Donald D. Stevens Center, or the people, more likely actually the organizers of the National, should just have numbers on each spot saying you are at booth 1305 or whatever, right? Because the only real signs that tell you where you are big signs dangling from the ceiling saying you're in row 1300, but it doesn't say if you're in the middle, are you at like 1325 or are you at like 1380? You have no idea. You just know you're in 13 something, right? And I would say 98% of the booths did not have numbers. Some brought their own signage that were really crude and didn't look that professional, just to say I'm booth 1243. But by and large, it's not readily available to know what you are. And I think this one is an easy win. Just hire some high school students or some summer students, or sorry, university students or college students for a summer job. Hey, come here, put up signs for all a bajillion booths, and we'll pay you like minimum wage for 2 days, and have them do that, on the Wednesday or the Tuesday as people set up. I don't understand why that would be so crazy. Like I don't understand why this doesn't exist. Because the show floor is overwhelming, especially if you're not good with a sense of direction. So to me, again, this one easy win. Put booth numbers and put them on each of the booths. Like a lot of these, there's like posts or stuff that you could put in the background. It's a pretty straightforward idea. Third idea. This map is the only thing on the Nationals website that shows you what the layout is going to be. So unless you researched in advance, like I did, and examined this PDF, and to be fair, this PDF you can zoom in on and see the exact booth numbers, you have no idea where you are at any point in time, especially if, again, you're not good with directions or have a good sense of direction and or had researched this in advance. So if you're looking for some random booth, the other thing is, if you're looking for a random booth, you have to look in to see the individual numbers, and like you have to zoom in a lot to see the numbers. But the problem is there is no accompanying list on this PDF. You don't know that booth number 1255 is this vendor. You have to go to a whole separate list and do that cross-reference yourself, and it's annoying. So what I ended up actually doing in advance is there were a few people that I wanted to meet. Shout out to Brian at Ship My Cards, people at the ComC booth who were awesome, and also the people at the SGC booth who were awesome. Those were the three main people I wanted to hit up. But if you didn't know, what I did was I created like a list in my notes app on my phone, because that was the only way to do it easily, instead of going back and forth and cross-referencing things. But like, build an app maybe? Is that so hard? Like, because it exists. I was at a booth late in this first day, I think, and this person had this interactive app on their phone. It was this app here, this GM10, and it was interactive. It had all the booth numbers along with the booth vendor on it, and you could zoom in, you could zoom out, you can move around. Think of any interactive map that you've used or seen, or even if you go to the mall and they have that map on the big screen there, and you can search, you can look for stuff, you can zoom in, how do I walk to it? Like, it was exactly the same. So the only way that this app got this information is to use information that the National gave them. So why aren't they promoting this app to at least improve their own customer and user experience? That, hey, the National doesn't have an app, but download the GM10. Why isn't this stapled all over the website? Like, I don't understand. This is like, if you're not going to build your own map, you're going to stick with this crappy PDF. Just point to something that actually works and is great, and partner with them in the future. I don't understand. I just do not understand. You don't have something good that exists, that's fine. You don't want to spend the money, that's fine. You should really rethink that. But if you're not going to spend the money, at least be like, hey, here's a PDF, but also here's this lovely app that exists. Why isn't this like right at the front door of the National? With, say, download this app. This picture I took was in a hotel. It was at the Crown Plaza, I believe. It kind of blows my mind that this existed and they didn't have this for everybody to use and promoting it. So that's third idea. What do you think about that one? Did you guys even hear about the GM10 app? The way that the person beside me was looking at it or using it, it seemed to work pretty fine, and he was like, yeah, I'm this is working great. So he had no complaints, and he's like, yeah, just download it. It costs nothing. I was like, okay. So that's the third idea. Fourth idea, the floor layout is absolutely insane. From what I understand, there is tiered. The floor layout is tiered based off of how long you've been having a booth at the show. Basically, it's purely based off of tenure and has nothing to do with meritocracy, has nothing to do with how much you paid. It is purely based off of how long you've been here. And literally, are you part of the old boys network? Because if you're an old boy part of the network, you've been there for a while, that means you get the same spot every year. And to me, that's insane. That's absolutely insane. Because that leads to things like you'll have a vintage booth beside a modern booth. You'll have a soccer booth beside by basketball. Like there is no rhyme or reason what's beside the other one, except that's the way it's always been done. And if you know me, if the only reason you're doing something is that's the way it's always been done, then it's just the worst way to do anything. And that lack of creativity, the staleness, for lack of a better word, it just screams inefficiency. It screams lack of creativity. It screams I don't want to actually do any work. And it just reinforces the old boys network. Oh, you get this great table and this great spot because you've been here for 25 years. And here's another way to think about it. If you were to start from scratch to create the show floor layout, would this be anything close to the way you design it? And the answer is simple. It's not. There's no way. You have, suddenly you'll have a Magic or TCG table next to someone that's doing vintage baseball. Like there's no logic to it at all. And so for me, if there was one area that's just like, this is the vintage area, go to here. And then within the vintage area, here's like the vintage baseball area, tables, and the vintage basketball and the vintage football. And then there's one that's just like all vintage, and you kind of have it like that, right? But no, it's like vintage beside modern, beside some random other thing, like besides baseball gloves, besides trophies, like doesn't make any sense. And so I've ranted about this enough, but it was increasingly frustrating as I walked the floor. And that's why I was able to walk the floor in a day and a half, even though how big it was, even though I stopped to talk to people, even though I was dropping cards off at SGC, at PSA, even though I was talking to people at the ComC booth. I was managed to walk the entire floor in a day and a half. And that's because there was a bunch of booths I just blew past because they weren't relevant to me. And so if there was a whole section of that, I could probably walk the whole show floor in a day. So that's my thoughts on this one. What do you think? Do you agree that the layout makes no sense? Or do you think we should stick with the status quo of the old boys network? This is the way we've always done it, and that's the way we're going to do it going forward. You probably know where my thoughts are. All right, and then the last one. There were a ton of families at this show. And people who've been here before in previous years have said that this is unlike previous nationals in terms of the diversity of people. It's not just all middle-aged white dudes, for lack of a better phrase, right? So the people saying there are a lot more women, a lot more families, a lot more kids, and that kind of stuff. Fantastic. Absolutely love it. That's great. Marketing arm of the national, you're doing great. The problem is there's nothing for the spouses to do. And let's be honest, the spouses, mostly women, right? Like I can't tell you the number of times I saw a girlfriend or a wife or whoever, like just standing at the end of the aisle, looking bored out of their minds, sometimes with a stroller, with a small child, just waiting for their husbands or partner or whatever to finish looking at these pieces of cardboard. And they were there just to accompany them, but they had nothing to do. And so if you want to draw in, if you're Michael Rubin, you want to draw in new people to the hobby, what you want to do is create an area that is less sports card focused and more kid friendly. And so there were a couple of areas. There was the trade area for sports card investor that had a bunch of kids. There was like a kids trade zone. There was like the Fanatics and Tops area that also had some stuff going on. And that's in this top right corner here that I've highlighted. And in the bottom left corner and near the Whatnot area, there was some stuff. And I believe, and I don't remember where it was, but there was some basketball shooting thing that's happening near the main stage here, in the pavilion near the Casebrick area. But like to go from here to maybe the main stage area, it's very disjointed, very far apart. And I think there should just be an area for spouses and kids that they could spend time at while, daddy goes and looks at, vintage baseball, which they clearly will have very little interest in or are unlikely to have, or, they will get bored after 10 minutes of it, right? And if you want to bring new people to the hobby, this is how you do it, right? Like, daddy wants to bring the family to the card show because he loves its cards. Well, you get them in there and then give them something else to do that'll keep them entertained for a little bit. And I should say, yeah, this I believe it was the Whatnot area, maybe the alt area. They also had some video games. They had a little bit like two arcade game type things where you roll the ball and see what score you get or whatever, right? But we need more of that to keep like kids engaged, and also just as importantly, the spouses engaged and wanting them to come back, because that's how you get new people in the hobby. It's not going to be an overnight thing, right? And so the fact that there was nothing else for these people to do, like it's definitely an area of growth that they can really capitalize on. If there's something that could get them excited to be there, and then through osmosis of just so many thousands of booths or hundreds of booths that they get excited about cards slowly over time. So those are my 5 ideas. What do you think? Is there one that I'm missing that you think should be added? I'm not going to talk about things like AC, air conditioning, not in Atlantic City, because I think that's outside the control of the national. I'm not going to talk about the food because I'm sure there's some kind of weird agreement that there's no good food options and we have to go with the vendors that are there. But these are the 5 that I came up with. So let me know your thoughts on the 5 I have. Is there one that I'm missing? And would love to hear those in the comments below. And thank you as always for listening and watching, and I will talk to you all soon. Cheers.